What is up, Dynasty Leaguers? Welcome into another DLF YouTube channel video. We are now post NFL draft. We are now discussing about all the landing spots for the rookies, draft capital, all that awesome stuff. And we are in the heart of rookie draft season now that the NFL draft has completed last weekend. So from now until the foreseeable future on Tuesdays, like it has been pre-draft, will continue to be mock drafts for rookie drafts, and then we'll eventually get into startups as well to kind of mix it up, maybe do a couple of them a week as well. But today, at least initially, because the NFL draft just wrapped up, we're going to do a 12-team 2021 Superflex rookie mock draft, and today I've decided to go out of the 4 spot in this draft. So without any further ado, let's get right into the video. So like I said at the top, we're doing a 2021 Superflex rookie draft. I'm going to alternate between Superflex and one quarterback to get you guys all of that good information. But I think it's important to do the first one post NFL draft as a Superflex because that's kind of more of the preferred format. And then also I think the quarterbacks kind of got shaken up a little bit too. So we can talk about them initially at the start of the first round. And then, you know, where does Najee Harris, Jamar Chase, Kyle Pitts, where do they slide in relation to all these other quarterbacks? So let's get right into this mock draft here. Like I said, I'm picking out of the 104 spot, just a regular PPR, no tight end premium or anything like that. So the first 3 picks in this draft was Trevor Lawrence 101, pretty easy. Justin Fields 1.02, which I find to be pretty interesting. I feel like he's going to be ranging anywhere from quarterback 2, maybe down to quarterback 4, given that his landing spot with the Chicago Bears after they traded up to get him after he fell out of the top 10. So it'll be really interesting to see where Justin Fields goes. I like it though at the 1.03 or 1.02. 1.03 was Najee Harris, the clear-cut RB1 in this class, going first round to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I like that a lot. I would have taken Najee Harris at the 104 spot if he was still available. So with my pick here, I'm just going to go with my personal quarterback 2 in this class post-draft in Trey Lance. I like Trey Lance a lot given that he landed with the San Francisco 49ers. Shanahan reported that it was actually Trey Lance that they had traded up for with all intent to get at that 1.03 spot. And for me, Trey Lance is my quarterback 2. I give him the nod slightly over Justin Fields just in terms of I think Trey Lance starts earlier. I think that Jimmy Garoppolo is a worse quarterback than Andy Dalton, and I think Trey Lance starts. And I also think that Shanahan wants Trey Lance to start earlier, given how much that they gave up to trade up for him, go get their guy. I think Trey Lance starts sooner than Justin Fields. I also trust the offensive weapons a lot more now in San Francisco than I do Chicago, even though Chicago I think has the better wide receiver of all of them in Allen Robinson. I like Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, and the amalgam of running backs that the Niners now have out of the backfield as Trey Lance's main weapons versus what Justin Fields is going to have in Allen Robinson, Anthony Miller, Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet, David Montgomery, Tariq Cohen. I like the offensive weapons for Trey Lance a lot better. And I also think Kyle Shanahan is just a better offensive-minded and better coach than Matt Nagy. So I trust Kyle Shanahan a lot more as a football coach, as an offensive mind. I like him a lot more than Matt Nagy in the Bears offense with Justin Fields. And I also think if you're going to talk about rushing upside, Trey Lance I think has better rushing upside than Justin Fields, who's a little bit more pass first than it is rush. Trey Lance is more of a guy who could be like a Kyler Murray or a Lamar Jackson in the league to Justin Fields, who could be anywhere from Russell Wilson also up to Kyler Murray as well. But I think his rushing floor is a little bit lower than Trey Lance's. So all that stuff gives me Trey Lance over Justin Fields in terms of the edge for my quarterback 2 in this class. But I don't fault anybody who has Fields as their quarterback 2. So enough about Trey Lance. We can move on with the rest of this. 1.05 was Zach Wilson. I like that a lot. 1.06 was Jamar Chase. 107 was Kyle Pitts. I feel like this is a pretty typical top 7 in some of or whatever of their order. 1.08 was Travis Etienne. 109 was Javonte Williams. Still feel like we're in very good ADP and company there with those 2 picks. 110 was Rashad Bateman. 111 was Devonta Smith. 112 was Jalen Waddle. This could be the computer, still catching up from landing spot with Rashad Bateman being ahead of all of Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle, even though Bateman was taken later and to a worse landing spot than, Philadelphia and Miami, at least initially. But I still, don't mind Rashad Bateman as the wide receiver 2 entirely. I do think that he is a better prospect than Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle both individually, even though both seem like they landed in better landing spots off the rip. So will be an interesting, wide receiver 2 through 4 to kind of decipher through for the next couple of weeks here. But that's at least what we got here to close out the first round. Top of the second round was Mac Jones, sliding all the way out of the first round, even though he still was a first-round quarterback, to the 15th overall pick to the New England Patriots. Slides out of the first round in Superflex, which I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I still think Mac Jones can be a pretty solid quarterback, and I think being able to grab him at the 2.01 is a smash hit in Superflex drafts. Kenneth Gainwell then is the 2.02, and then Rondale Moore at the 2.03 is really, really interesting. I feel like this ADP is still catching up to post-draft, so we can give a little bit of leeway and it'll be better next week. But Kenneth Gainwell, I think going at the 2.02 is really, really high for him. But Rondale Moore at the 2.03 still feels right for me there. So my pick here at 2.04 is really, really interesting. For me, personally, I'm going to go with who I think is the best running back on the board, a guy who shot up a lot in terms of pure landing spot, especially whenever you think about all the other running backs and their landing spots that they got, which were not so favorable. I'm going to go with Michael Carter here. Michael Carter, who was still a very, very early, like the third pick in the fourth round or the second pick in the fourth round, taken by the New York Jets. He could immediately slide in and be that team's starting running back. There's like no other competition for them. It's Tevin Coleman, LaMichael P. Ryan. This is going to be Michael Carter's backfield, I fully believe, by mid-season and on. I think Michael Carter is a really, really good running back. He was my RB5 pre-draft behind Kenneth Gainwell. And I think that he could be really, really, really good in the NFL for a couple years, 3, maybe 4 years in the NFL. I'm not expecting, RB1 numbers or even high-end RB2 numbers, especially in the Jets offense, unless Zach Wilson really gets things going. But, that team is trying to build around Zach Wilson, and they, invested some more in the offensive line as well. And I think Michael Carter could be a very, very solid, mid to back end RB2, just grabbing maybe 900 rushing yards on some volume and, 5-6 touchdowns, maybe catches a little bit out of the backfield as well. I think he can be a pretty solid, RB2 kind of a guy. And that's why I like him, especially a lot more than all the other running backs. And I think a lot of the wide receivers also kind of got grouped together because of landing spot, which makes me go with Michael Carter as my 2.04. So the rest of the second round went Jamar Jefferson, Terrace Marshall, Kadarius Toney, Trey Sermon, Chuba Hubbard, Elijah Moore, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Seth Williams, Tylan Wallace, Kyle Trask, and then Diami Brown at the 3.03. So I am back up on the clock here. This is really tough. And what you're going to notice throughout your rookie drafts, whether it be Superflex or one quarterback, is that this draft board dries up really quickly. Like, you could argue that Kadarius Toney, just based on being a first-round pick to the Giants, should be up in that top second round. Probably Elijah Moore as well. Trey Sermon can be in that group too. But then after that, man, it gets like really, really rough just in terms of they didn't either get good draft capital, they didn't get to good landing spots. In Superflex, when you include the 5 quarterbacks, you're talking about maybe getting to 204, 205 before it really drops off. In one quarterbacks, it's going to be a lot sooner than that. It's going to be to the point in one quarterbacks where you're in the early second round, you're like, man, I might as well just take a quarterback here. I might as well just take Justin Fields or Trey Lance. Trevor Lawrence is probably going to be a back end first in one quarterback leagues. So it dries up really, really quickly. And I think something that I would recommend to everybody moving forward in your rookie drafts that they haven't taken place yet is trying to move as many of your picks either back into 2022 or moving them up into 2021 and try and get into the first round, either having multiple first round picks, or if you have a back end first, try to trade up into a, Najee Harris, Jamar Chase, Kyle Pitts, Etienne Williams kind of thing. I'd rather do that than take the shot on like a Jalen Waddle or Devonta Smith and just, packaging your first, your second, maybe your third, and just moving up a few picks and be able to get somebody who I think is much more solidified and much more of a stud than, those back end first kind of guys, and then not having to worry about taking your shot on a lot of these second and third round, rookie picks, because I think at the end of the day, a lot of these guys are not going to be worth a whole lot in a couple years, and it's not going to be really, really good for the dynasty landscape. But for the purpose of this mock draft, we have to make a pick here. 3.04. Who would I pick looking at this whole entire list? And to me, I think just because when you factor in draft capital, you factor in the remainder of the position as well, I think looking at this list of what's available, I'm going to go with Pate Freiermuth. I'm going to take the shot on the guy who was a second round pick to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers landing spot, especially for tight ends, might not necessarily be the greatest thing in the world, given the fact that at least initially he's going to be behind Eric Ebron. So he's not even potentially the best pass catching tight end on that team, or at least not going to be treated as the pass catching tight end on that team. Freiermuth is a very good blocker, and I think being a good blocker could help get him on the field earlier and more, so I think that he has that opportunity. I've seen a lot of people and Steelers beat writers and people within the organization say that they missed having that Heath Miller kind of a tight end weapon, and that's what they were trying to get in Pate Freiermuth, a guy who can block really well, but also run to the first down marker, turn around, catch the ball, and run for another 5, 6, 7 yards and then fall down. And that's kind of what we're looking at with Pate Freiermuth, even though I think that he can do more in the receiving game. I think he is a really good route runner. I think he's a bit more dynamic than what Heath Miller offered to the table back, in the early 2000s all the way through the early 2010s. But I think Freiermuth at least plays that initial role off the rip, as a pass blocking tight end who can do a little bit more. And I like him as my 3.04 pick because of draft capital, landing spot, ahead of all of these other guys, especially all the wide receivers too. I like taking the shot on that tight end, and my clear-cut tight end 2 in this class after the NFL draft. So then we get to the 4.04, and again, we are really struggling here. What is interesting is because this is a Superflex draft, there was that huge run of quarterbacks that went in that second round with Kellen Mond and Davis Mills and Kyle Trask. This could absolutely be a place where you just take a shot on one of them. Maybe the starter goes down and you get a starting quarterback. Maybe these guys have plans for their quarterbacks, moving forward. Maybe Kellen Mond is in the works of being a Kirk Cousins replacement. Maybe Davis Mills get an opportunity. It's really up in the air in terms of what you want to do with these quarterbacks here. For me personally, I think I'm gonna shy away from that, and I'm still maintaining that Elijah Mitchell is my auto 4th round pick in every single draft. Even though that he was a later pick, we expected him to be a later pick. He fell to the San Francisco 49ers, who, even though they took Trey Sermon at the end of the 3rd round, I think Elijah Mitchell still has an opportunity to be the best running back on that team. And I think, we've seen time and time again that no matter who Kyle Shanahan puts in that backfield, they're going to produce for fantasy football. And if Elijah Mitchell finds himself in that opportunity with that volume, I think that he could do very, very well. Raheem Mostert has had injury problems in staying on the field in the past couple of years. They also don't have Jarrett McKinnon. Tevin Coleman is gone. And so it's really just Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, Trey Sermon, and Elijah Mitchell. And yeah, he's the RB4 on that team right now. And he has some time to, really get up into the real depth chart piece and to be a starting player on that team. But, if things go the right way, Elijah Mitchell could actually end up being in a pretty good situation. So I like taking the shot on Elijah Mitchell there, especially over a lot of the other guys as well. That's kind of where I'm at with Elijah Mitchell and with this 4th round, which it's really ugly. So here, finally in the 5.04, we've never done a 5th round before, but Andy added a 5th round to these rookie drafts, and this is the point now. Kellen Mond went at the 4.08. I'm just going to take the shot on Davis Mills, just as a quarterback. He went to the Houston Texans. I feel like as a more insurance piece for Deshaun Watson, just in case if Deshaun Watson doesn't play in 2021 or isn't on the team after the summer or this year or whatever actually ends up happening with Deshaun Watson. I feel like the Davis Mills pick was an insurance pick they have Tyrod Taylor, who is serviceable, but isn't great. Davis Mills showed some flashes, and a lot of NFL people and scouts and draft analysts said that they really liked what they saw out of Davis Mills at Stanford. Even though he's coming off of a couple of injuries as well, he had at least everything and at least flashes of everything that they want out of a quarterback and a pocket quarterback as well. So taking the shot here on a guy like Davis Mills, I think is pretty solid. A lot of the other guys, you could go with Anthony Schwartz there if you really want to go and chase after, a wide receiver with some draft capital. Just take a shot on a quarterback in Superflex. Maybe he ends up starting for the Houston Texans. Maybe not. I don't know. And your 5th round pick is just swinging for the fences anyway. So yeah, I think that's going to do it for this 5-round 2021 Superflex rookie draft. I hope it kind of, showcases a little bit in terms of where these players are going, who got bumped up, who got dropped down. I know that the ADP, at least on here, is still trying to cook a little bit just because we haven't necessarily have a huge sample of post-draft rookie drafts in terms of people using this or actual rookie drafts from MFL, Sleeper, and stuff like that, just because, we are only like 3 days after the NFL draft. So this all should start to correct itself and get much more accurate as the weeks go on throughout the rest of May, even starting as early as next week. But I think it still gives a pretty somewhat accurate description of what could happen, at least in the first round and into the second round as well. And of course, we'll talk through everything throughout the rest of May and the summer. So with that all being said, guys, thank you all so much for tuning in. We will catch you all next week with another mock draft, later on this week with more rookie draft content. And with that all being said, guys, thank you all so much for watching, tuning in. We'll catch y'all later.